Here with Al Sandoval, MLB assistant strength coach for the Rangers, but been in pro ball since '08 and started with the Rockies, but graduated from CSU Pueblo. So, Al, thanks for jumping on with me.
Thank you so much for having me. I greatly, greatly appreciate it.
You know, how is the Texas organization? How are you guys relaying from your information on the strength and conditioning side to then the players and the coaches on the baseball side?
So for us, we have numerous AMS systems. Like we store all of our player data, testing profiles and stuff in a Smartabase that was created internally that has our coaches front office and people that have access to certain things just so we can keep track of our guys. When we're relaying lifts to our players, like off season, now that we don't have them, we rely on the Team Builder app. We program all the lifts. We use the ForceDex force plate to create movement signatures. From our movement signatures, we'll design lifts based upon what the player needs as opposed to what they traditionally want. And then we send that out to the players so they can train throughout the off season. So when they come back to us after the off season, it's, running smooth in spring training.
How much has that even changed in the last 10 years?
From when I started to where I'm at right now, though, the position I am in has the same title and it's not even close to the same. Technology's advanced us, and again, good for our profession and for our field. It's just exponentially different. When I started, it's just, hey, go stretch the guys, kind of get out of the way, go feed the machine, catch in at first base, whatever, to where finally people have realized the value in health and staying healthy and taking care of your bodies, taking care of your minds, and kind of put us at the forefront because again, time is money. The best way to become a good player is be available, and again, training helps you to be available if you do it correctly.
I mean, for somebody that might be interested in getting into it right now and knowing where the technology is going, how do you balance that as someone new to the profession where you know that maybe in 5, 10 years from now, it might be different than what I'm doing right now?
We kind of talked about it a little bit before we started recording. For anybody who wants to get into the strength and conditioning field is keep it simple, learn the basic, and know the whys. This technology, just like, I mean, 10 years ago when you had iPad player, nobody thought it was going to turn into an iPhone. Now it's an iPhone, now it's an iPad, now it's a MacBook. So again, technology is always going to be moving forward, but at the end of the day, you have to know the basics of physiology, the understanding of the body, and then again, you should be using this technology to validate what you see or what you know, and again, putting the pieces of the puzzle together. So finding a good collegiate program that has a good exercise physiology program department. And again, now they're teaching this technology in the schools and colleges and in the systems, which is awesome because I didn't have that. We had to learn force plates on our own. We had to use VBT machines on our own. So again, now that's going to be introduced to them, but the technology is fantastic and it's great. Again, it's objective, not subjective data, but you can go down so many rabbit holes if you're not educated in the basics.
You know, is it better though when you first started with like force plates and all of that? Is it almost better to learn by trial and error or having somebody walk you through that stuff?
I think it's both. I've been very, very, very fortunate to where when I was with Colorado, I left and they started using this technology. I mean, close to 10, 12 years ago. So I'm the type to where I like to learn and I like to learn not only through my own knowledge, but then I like to learn from other people's mistakes. Because again, when we try new things, um, stuff's going to happen that just we have to work through. So me learning the stuff up front on my own, I personally like doing that. So when I have questions, then I go to the people who have knowledge and experience in that field, and it helps me clarify. And then, yes, my last step is trial and error. I always try it on myself first. And then again, I integrate it with the players next. But I always like to do those first two things first. I like to do my research on it by myself first, then talk to people who have used it second. Then I do the trial and error third, as opposed to putting it all together and getting lost.
Is there a lot of difference between the way the Rangers are running things than with the Rockies or the Angels? Are all organizations different, similar?
Similar and different in the same capacities. Again, all of us are now utilizing technology to validate what we see, and again, using it everything in our field is very subjective. Again, 1RM testings, when it comes to lifting movement screens. If you're not using a goniometer, all that stuff's very subjective based upon what you see. To where a lot of this technology gives us objective data. So I do think organizations are using the objective data, how they choose to use it to now prescribe, exercise protocols for players. So we're all doing that, but we all do it in a different capacity. Again, some of us are more similar than others, but now everybody, for the most part, in Major League Baseball is integrating technology um, to help create plans for our players to keep them healthy.
Hey, when you got to Pueblo, did you know this is what you were going to get into?
I did not. I was going to be an athletic trainer, actually. I wanted to go into medical because I wanted to stay in sports. My whole thing was I played baseball, but I always knew I was kind of an overachiever and I probably should. I was kind of like the Rudy type. I didn't make the team because I was that good. I made it because I was a character guy. Coaches wanted me around, whatever. So I always wanted to use my education to allow me to stay in baseball. And so again, I was originally planning to be a trainer. And then when I found out I had to do 2 extra years of college because I couldn't fulfill all my needs playing baseball, I was like, well, this exercise science thing's going. And fortunately for me, I picked a field that was at the bare bottom and has only grown since I've jumped into it. So that's kind of how I transitioned. But initially, I was going to be a trainer slash PT, and then it evolved into this right now.
You know, at the minor league and major league level, you have such a wide range of ages. I mean, how are you guys planning for that piece where even for you guys, you might have a young rookie and then you may have a 40-year-old veteran on the same staff?
So we have a tremendous strength staff. So again, Jose Vasquez is our head guy up here. I'm the assistant, and then we have a whole um, uh, strength and conditioning department. Napoleon Pichardo heads that. Logan Franson on a minor league level. So again, the way we think about it is again, not only do you got to think of age wise, you got to think of socioeconomic classes. We have 16-year-olds in the Dominican Republic who are malnutritioned. The school factor, they haven't been there, they have no training age, they've never been at a gym, to collegiate kids coming out of college, high school kids coming out of high school, all the way in between to where, again, the Corey Seagers, Marcus Simeons of the world. So the way we treat it is our minor league staff does a tremendous job with our kids in the Dominican. We train our 16-year-olds in the Dominican kind of as we would middle school kids, teaching them how to just move, proper movement patterns, body weight stuff. And the goal for those kids is by the time they get to the States, they know how to properly do a squat, a hinge, a lunge, a push, and a pull. So now we can physically develop them when they're 18. We teach them how to eat. We can load them safely when they come to us. And it's the same thing with like our college kids that get drafted, high school kids that get drafted. We kind of treat them like freshmen in college. Yeah, you've had experience, you've had success, you know how to do things. However, this is a completely different animal. You're not playing 3 days a week. You're going every day. You're going to practice every day. You're going to pitch every fifth day, not every seventh day. So we kind of treat them like freshmen. And then as they move up the ranks, double A, it's kind of like more of your sophomore, junior, triple A, and our experienced double A players are more like your college seniors. They know what their body needs. They've experienced the seasons. They kind of have that. And then again, here at the big league level, our biggest thing is if our minor league development staff does what we want them to do in the minor leagues, when they get to us, it's just plug and chug. Hey, buddy, you're here for a reason. We're going to continue with the program we've been doing, and we're going to roll with it. So kind of that's how it works. I'll say for the majority of pro ball. And again, our minor league guys are tremendous. They're the grinders. They're the boots on the ground. I mean, those guys are effortless and they're intricate to what we do up here because it's just like a kid. You learn your best behavioral patterns when you're young. And so it's so important that those guys at those lower levels teach the guys how to train, when to train, and what to do. And then by the time they get up here, it's easy.
You know, for those 16-year-old Latin kids that are, the food scarcity piece is real, how are you helping them maybe learn how to take care of their nutrition for the first time because they actually have options now?
So we have an academy out in the Dominican, and we're fortunate. It's an awesome academy, and all teams do. So we feed those guys. When they're with us, they get every meal with us. And then again, we have a lot of educational pieces. Not only are we teaching them English and teaching them a high school education, they're learning how to eat, what to eat, and why to eat it. So again, all that goes into they literally live at the complex. So outside of baseball, they're in classroom sessions, kind of learning all that stuff. And it's the same thing even with our young guys in Arizona, our rookies out in Arizona. All that educational piece goes along with it. Again, from their skill side of things to the nutrition to the training, even to our athletic trainers. We have meetings with them once a week. We're not only going to tell you what to do, we're going to explain why we're asking you to do it. So they learn that young. So again, as they come up, it's not just dictated to them, they have an understanding of the whys behind it.
I've always thought about the Rangers organization as just being extremely physical. You know, my memories of growing up and the Rangers, it just seems like as a whole, the organization has had physical athletes.
That's that's one of the blessings that we have is in player development and our scouting department. We look for physical guys. They trust us from a physical development standpoint to go get a wider frame, maybe a wiry body, but we know that they're going to grow into the frame. And then again, they allow us in the medical side to kind of put forth a planned approach to develop these guys. But when I was on the other side, I spent 5 years with Colorado and 5 years in Anaheim. Yeah, I mean, I looked at those guys when we were in Double A, and I'm like, man, that's an all airport team. You if you're in an airport, you're like, who are those guys? Because they're
Yeah.
someone. And so it's kind of nice to be on this side. And yeah, I mean, but it's come from the top. Jose's been here over 15 years, our head guy, and Nappy and him have been running this thing together for close to 13 years. And they brought in people to where we do believe in being physical. We do believe in lifting heavy. We do believe in doing it smart, but we don't get away from it really throughout the entire season. Again, you have to have a planned approach and you have to be smart about it. But to throw hard and to hit balls far, you have to have some type of a strength capacity. You can't do it without being strong. And again, to be durable, there's not many guys that are frail that stay durable. I mean, it's just you look behind it. So again, our thought process is again, we do things smart, but we're not scared to get after it. And our front office does a great job of supporting us of no, we're going to get after it because we want homers and we want guys to throw 100.
Yeah.
So, kind of we're very fortunate to where we're all on the same thought process.
What are some things that maybe you thought were good in theory early on in your career and maybe not good in practice?
You learn a lot when you're growing up, and I was fortunate to have Brian Jordan in Colorado to let us try a lot of things and trial by error. Again, I think going down a lot of rabbit holes. Um, when I first started, close to 15 years ago, it was the new thing was sports specific training, functional training. That was the new buzzword, new catchphrase. So everything you had to be doing should be replicating a throw, should be replicating a swing. Med balls were huge then, like med ball throw this, med ball throw that, which actually led to an immense amount of obliques, overtraining, things like that. So I guess early on, like I was talking earlier, sticking to the basics. Sometimes, again, you want to be new, you want to be cutting edge. Like, oh, like I can do something really different. I don't regret it because I learned from it. But again, learn who you are as a strength coach, understand your principles and the whys of what you're doing things for your athletes, and kind of stick to those. You can go outside and find different ways to integrate that into your process, but you kind of yourself, you need to have some values of what you believe in, and again, have some knowledge behind it. Why does it work? What's the science behind it? And to stay out of those rabbit holes. Because again, today it's only gotten worse with Twitter, with Instagram, with Facebook. I mean, everybody knows the cure. And again, there's a lot of good stuff out there, but there's a lot of things that you need to be able to filter and pull the good from it and siphon the bad out from it. So again, those were my mistakes early on was kind of, oh, this guy knows it. Let's go all in on this. No, don't go all in on anything. Know yourself. And again, pull things from here and there and add them to your process and then stick to your guns.
I mean, what does the baseball side need to hear from the strength and conditioning side? Is that it? That, keeping it simple from a programming standpoint is going to be the best?
Yeah, for me, this collaborative approach has been tremendous because again, we finally got to see it at the table, and it's so important to have. However, with the collaborative piece, sometimes it takes away the skill aspect of skill coaches think we can fix everything in the weight room. Well, our job isn't to teach guys how to throw strikes or to hit a 98 mile per hour slider. Unfortunately, that's, you get what I mean. We can create movement patterns and help um, prime the system before they go do their skill. However, we're not responsible for the skill. I look at us not as a strength and conditioning coach, but as a physical preparation coach. My job is to make sure that these guys are physically prepared every day to be able to, one, play in the game, and two, be able to practice the skills that they need to get better. Again, along the way, we can help. Again, maybe have a guy feel something that they can't feel during their swing or their mechanics. However, we're not responsible for them creating that in the weight room. So again, we want to create an undulated model throughout the course of our in-season training to allow these guys to keep strength and power. We don't want any decline. The whole misconception of its maintenance during the season. If you're maintaining, you're losing. We play 3/4 of a year. So if you're doing maintenance for 3/4 of the year, guys are going to physically break down. And again, that's why I say you have to have a smart model, know what players are going through and when they're going through it. And again, when baseball activity ramps up, our physical stuff doesn't go away, but we might take some things away. And again, just knowing the process and the way ebbs and flows of the year and where to really pick when we want to get what we want out of it.
What data are you using then in season to know that okay, they're where they need to be from a power and speed output?
There's so many metrics that we use. Not so many metrics. We have them broken down, but again, there's some peak power numbers on our force plate. And again, our movement signature that we take into play to where we can kind of, not, I don't want to say red flag guys, but it allows us to have conversation. If we see guys' numbers dipping or their movement signature kind of change, it creates an opportunity of, again, these are human beings. They have kids, they have spouses, girlfriends, fiancés, parents, cousins. Sometimes guys don't sleep because they have a newborn. Sometimes they're broke up with their girlfriend and, now they're not sleeping, maybe doing some things that they shouldn't at night. And again, we can tell these things through our force plate data. That's kind of the biggest thing that we use. And then we scan guys every 2 weeks. It's part of our lift. If we don't make anything special, we don't make a fuss out of them. But that's the data that we use from our force plate, a few of the metrics from there that allow us to have conversations with guys. And not only do they allow us to have conversations with guys on if they're falling off, but on the positive side. Like I said, we kind of use the force plate as going and visiting the doctor. And then after the visit, that allows us to prescribe the medicine. And so, like, we can tell guys, hey, look, man, this is what we were working on. And look, bro, you're getting better. Look at where you were at 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, 6 months ago. We've gotten better. So it's good feedback for those players, for them, to see not only when they're going backwards, but when they're going forward and making strides in what we like them to do. So
How long does it take you to educate them on sleep? Because sleep is probably one of the most important things that they can do from themselves from a recovery standpoint.
it takes a while, but we hammer that again during spring training. We have meetings on it in our weight room. We're fortunate, we were blessed with a beautiful weight room. One of our screens has nothing but recovery tactics with slides, and it tells the differences of what you need. And we're always bombarding them with that. Again, nowadays we have NSF certified sleep products that help these guys to get to bed. And like, players nowadays at the elite level are very knowledgeable in these things, especially the successful ones. And so it's more or less just guiding them the proper ways of how to do it because they've heard it by now already.
What products are they using?
Like Clean Athlete has a melatonin spray. There's a Psalms drink, like a melatonin Psalms drink. There's a Sleeping Giant from Cytosport. Again, more or less melatonin products that helps the body kind of settle down. And
Spray
again, we
go in their
try.
mouth?
Yeah, it
Spray,
just goes under your
sprays
tongue.
in.
Yeah, yeah, simple things like that. The Psalms is, it looks like a Red Bull can, so they can drink it right before they go tonight. But again, our biggest things with our guys is we never want them to rely on a substance to be able to sleep. It's getting to the underlying factors of why can't you sleep. Let's create an environment of, okay, if you're stressed, why are you stressed? And again, that leads into another one of our pillars is our mental skills department. We have people to help guys with that because it doesn't matter what we do physically with guys. I mean, if their heart's not good and their mind's not good, things are going to go awry.
Shout out to Hannah
So
Huseman.
yeah, yes, yes,
She's
exactly.
speaking at the
So
convention this year.
yes, so that's one of the biggest things that, like, again, it's between us, our medical staff, our nutritionist, and the mental skills side. We kind of all work together to preach the same things and establish sustainable routines for these guys that they can do on their own.
What were some things you thought of as a player that maybe you don't think now as a strength and conditioning coach?
As in what perspective?
Anything,
I
as
never,
a 18, 19 year old, what are some things that maybe you thought that you don't believe now?
oh man, there's so many things that I don't believe as an 18, 19-year-old that I do now. I always try to educate myself even from a young age before I ask questions. But again, I guess from an 18, 19, even a 20 some year old perspective, it's always the whole just respect experience. If you surround yourself by the proper people, everybody's going to have your best interest in mind. Nobody wants to tell you what to do. Nobody wants to dictate your career. It's your career at the end of the day, no matter what level you're at. However, learn from other people's mistakes and learn, like I've learned from others' mistakes. So if I'm going to explain myself to somebody else, it might not even be a mistake I made. It might be something that I saw along the way. So it's just understand and surround yourself by positive people who you know have your best interests in mind and trust their judgment. You can question it, but as long as they have good explanations for the reasons behind it, just trust it and go with it.
Can you build competitive? Can you build competitiveness in the weight room?
Uh, I believe you can. I do believe you can because I believe when you get more physical, you gain more self confidence, which when you gain self confidence, it builds competitiveness. When I was in high school, I was 6 foot, 120 pounds, and I didn't believe in myself the way I did once I started to get more physical. So, competitiveness, I believe, just comes from belief in yourself. And I believe just in the health and fitness world in general, moving, working out, doing exercise, whether you're an athlete, whether you're trying to lose weight, just creates more self worth. And with more self worth comes more competitiveness. Yeah.
Is there a team component for you guys in the weight room? I know, pro ball is so individual, it's their career, but do you guys have team component stuff in the weight room?
We do, not to the college aspect, but the awesome part is when we do have it, it's player driven.
Yeah.
And the good teams that you're around, your veteran guys, which we have here, which they're doing right now, we have 15 guys coming in the off season. And I'm not going to name his name because he would not like me to, but he pushes these guys. And it's awesome seeing this guy live here, create an environment for these guys to come in and yell at them and get excited. Come on, look at, I see you working. I see you working. But again, it's at the collegiate level, the strength and conditioning coach drives that, rides that. That's his responsibility, his job. At our level, our job is to create the environment where if it happens, because we have leadership, then it happens. And again, that environment has been created here and it's pretty special right now.
Any exercises that are off the table for you? I know, it's been the whole, should pitchers bench, that there's always these theories or, wives' tales out there about what people should and shouldn't do. Is there anything off the table for you guys?
The obvious should not do's, obviously, for me, are the Instagram, unstable, squatting with one leg on a Bosu ball with the bench over my head and one arm and a kettlebell hanging from my teeth and all that stuff. I mean, it's common sense. I'm a big believer and there's no such thing as a bad exercise. It's all in how it's cued and the person that's doing it. Again, if we have a pitcher who's never had injuries, who's never had a shoulder injury, who likes to bench press, we've had them. We monitor it and we control it. It's not a bad lift. It's just how is it being performed? How is it being executed? And again, what's the periodization process with it? Um, it all depends on the athlete. Again, if we have a guy who has low back issues, we're going to stay away from deadlifting them. Doesn't mean the deadlift's non-negotiable for the guy next to him who's never had back issues. Um, so no, I don't believe there's such thing as a bad meat and potato exercise. Squat, hinge, lunge, push, pull. No, I think they're all good as long as they're coached properly.
How
And
many
again,
are
the wide overhead stuff I think is good. We do pull-ups. Again, you throw overhead. We do a lot of things overhead, but again, how is it being programmed? And know the history of your athletes that are doing them first, and make sure you progress your guys who can't do it. It's okay if you can't do a pull-up right now. Let's start with a lat pull down. Let's go to an eccentric drop. Let's go to a jumping pull up first. We'll work you up to there. So again, it's how do we progress the lifts for them?
this is another one that gets it to long distance running for pitchers. I mean, do you have some veteran guys that like to go out and run longer distances?
We do, and again, I'm not a proponent for it. However, we educate our guys of, hey man, we get it, because a lot of it's a mental thing for guys.
No.
We can do it, but hey, let's do it maybe in between these starts, and this is why. You get what I mean? You're telling me you have low knee pain and low back pain, but you want to go run 8 miles. Like, it just doesn't make sense, you know? And I'm not saying you can't do it, but let's just do it maybe in between every third start or something like that. So the education process is being able to step in and saying, understand why you're doing it, understand the science behind it. It really isn't proven. But if you still want to do it, we'll allow you to. But let's modify just a little, especially if you're having aches and pains from it.
Yeah, how do you modify that then? Because this happens all the time. You get nicked up, you get banged up. How would you modify that from, okay, this is maybe what they do, but now we're going to peel this back a little bit and lighten the load on them?
Well, unfortunately, injury is the best time for guys to learn. And again, even if they're not hurt, even if they're banged up,
Yeah.
it's like, hey, look, man. But this is the thing too, and this is the thing that sometimes people forget is even outside of being banged, sometimes guys are banged up because they're throwing so well. You might have a starter who's had 5 quality starts in a row. He's thrown 5 innings, 7 innings, 8 innings, 6 innings, 7 innings, who's just banged up from his workload, to where we step in and we intervene in those too. Because sometimes guys want to work harder because they want to keep it going. No, I got to keep going, got to keep going. And it's like, hey, look, man, let's take a step back, because you're used to throwing 95 to 105 pitches. You threw 125 to 130 pitches the past few games. And that's what we always tell our guys. The more we do in between the lines, the less we have to do here. It's going to balance itself out in the end. It'll work itself out, but we can't always be pushing, that we have to push and pull. And so that's kind of the conversation that we have. Again, a guy who's used to doing distance runs, we might tell him, hey, do 20 minutes between this start, do 15 the next start, and then let's do the elliptical the start after that. You could get cardio on the elliptical, have no impact, save your joints and things like that.
When are your relievers and your position players getting their lifts in?
We do everything pregame.
Everything's pregame. You have
Everything.
anybody that goes after, that goes post?
We do not. And again, that's a Ranger thing.
Yep.
I know there are a lot of teams who like to do it post game, which again, it's all personal preference. Our thought process and our belief is we ask our guys to do 2 full body lifts a week. How they do them, it doesn't matter. If they do upper lower splits, it's fine. If they do 2 full bodies a week, so we're literally asking for 50 minutes of their time a week. And we want them to prioritize their physical preparation just as much as they do their bullpens, as much as they do their swings in the cages, their early hitting. They're not going to throw a bullpen after the game. They're not going to go take 100 swings after the game. So this is part of the piece. This is part of the process. We want them to bring that same those same physical capabilities when they walk in the building that they do to that activity. Because after a game, these guys are gassed. They're dehydrated. They're hungry. Depending on how the game went, there's just so many variables that go on. We want them to be able to knock it out, get it done. And again, we don't ask for a lot of their time.
Do you think the active recovery piece has changed quite a bit too? It seems like people are staying more active throughout the 12-month calendar rather than in the past where they would just completely shut it down for a while.
Oh yeah, no, it's night and day different. I mean, again, we're 12 months out of the year. I mean, the strength and conditioning department. And again, our skill guys work their tails off during the course of the year, just like everybody else. But guys, to be honest with you, they take off from their skill stuff more than they do from their physical work, which is good because they need the body to repair from, especially baseball. It's all unnatural activity that you're not supposed to be doing, and they do it so often they need to take a break from it. So like our guys will take about close to a month to 2 months off of throwing and hitting, and then they kick it back up. I mean, December, January. January is like we're going to be full go next month. Um, but the physical piece, guys literally only take about 2 to 3 weeks off. And we tell them, go take off, go decompress, go be a human, go enjoy your wife, your kids, your families, because we got to get after it. And then we do get after it for, I mean, starting end of October.
What are you basing their numbers off of? So you're basically starting the whole thing over. So October, what are you basing their numbers off from a programming standpoint when you get them back going in October?
October, we really don't base off of like 1 RMs maxes. We kind of do this linear periodization model. We do a lot of GPP stuff. Um, in end of October, our first few weeks. And then once we get our GPP stuff for a few weeks, then we kind of start slowly working back into our strength work. And we do a good month and a half of strength. And then now, like our next 3 weeks, we're going to go strength and power. And then we'll go straight power right leading up right into spring training. And then once they get to spring training, we taper down and we do kind of one strength lift a week, one power lift a week, and they're very fast because spring training, these guys, their workload goes up significantly. A lot of these guys are trying to earn a job, gain a job. Some of the guys have, like the guys that we know have a job, we kind of start them on an in-season model, but there's more guys who don't have a job to where we monitor them very closely because we know they're doing extra ground balls, might be throwing more bullpens, might be swinging extra. So we kind of really, again, we tell them first and foremost, I mean, their skill is most important. And we'll make the adjustment during spring. And then once spring training ends, again, we're just as much important as your early hitting, as your bullpens and things like that.
Do you feel like that's been the biggest thing that's changed with your programming is understanding the amount of volume that goes on during a baseball game and then trying to alleviate some of that in the weight room?
100%. And again, we have technology now, at least at the major league level, that validates it. I mean, these guys through StatCast, we know how fast they run, how many times they run it, how many sprints they make, how fast they are home to first, their time standing on defense. Because again, baseball is an action packed. I get it. But don't take out the fact that these guys are just standing up on their feet for 2.5 hours.
Yeah, on
You
cleats.
know that, yeah, on cleats, on dirt, and us, we have synthetic turf. So a lot of that stuff does add up. And again, like we have position breakdowns as far as averages of what they're used to doing running wise and stuff like that. So all that, it's significantly changed in helping us to again come into these guys and just have quality talks. Again, the whys. Why are we asking you to do this, man? We feel we can push right now, and this is why. Hey, we need to pull back right now, and this is why. So a lot of that's changed just due to the technology that we have now.
How are you on ramping their legs, the position players' legs, as they get closer to spring training?
We're doing a lot of like speed work out here right now in the off season because again, I don't like just running to run, guys. Like running's an art. It really is. So again, we even pitchers are supposed to run the most, and they're the most unathletic people generally. So like let's teach these guys how to run so they could get the quality that running brings to the body out of it. And then come January, like right now, we start sprint progressions and stuff. Then when spring training hits, we have a running progression to where we stride. Like we want to make sure everybody's on pace right then and there. So we'll do some striders the first few days, and then we do arcs just to get guys turning. Then we progress the arcs into short sprints and goes. So like chopping and going. Majority of hamstring pulls happen not when you're running straight ahead or when you're on a turn. It's when you're stopping and then, oh, I got to go. And then after we do our stop go runs, we'll get guys on the bases. And then we start progressing to the bases. And then again, we kind of continue with the bases. I'm big with our position players. We do the bases as much as they can. Just because very rarely does any baseball player run more than 30 yards straight ahead. Your outfielder catching a ball in the gap, everything else is short bursts, 10 to 15 yards. So we really don't need to run those guys straight ahead a lot. You know, we need to teach them how to turn. We need to teach them how to round. We need to teach their bodies how to push off the bag. So we do bases more often than not during their season.
I always felt like that the hardest thing to replicate was not just the throwing piece with the okay, in any given game it might be 9 innings, it might be more, where they're going to get their arms up in between innings. Same thing, or they may not run or sprint for a while. Is there any way to kind of help getting back into that piece where we might have one sprint, then we may not have to sprint for another 40 minutes? Is there a way to replicate that at all
There's really
in a
not.
safe
There's not.
fashion?
No, there's really not.
It's
All
not.
at the
That's
major league
that's a
level.
tough one because we would have
No,
them. We would have three stations basically going. We'd have a live hitting group, we'd have a cage group, and we're stuck inside in the Midwest. So, and then we would have a defensive group. So we actually wanted them to get their sprint work in on the defensive side to kind of help get their volume built up, but also get used to being shut down and then having to get their arms and legs back up.
for us, game preparation wise, it's a non-negotiable. So like that's where our conditioning comes in. We don't get guys on the line and we're like, here, let's run. We have guys get it in during batting practice. Like if you ever go watch major league or minor league batting practice, you see guys run the bases. We tell our guys, hey man, you don't every time you run, you just give us one tour of the bases. Hard to first. Go first to third, finish home to first. If you do that 3 times, we hit BP on the field 5 times a week at least. You're getting 15 sprints to first in. And then our other thing is it's non-negotiable is pregame. It's like you have to run 3 to 5 all-out sprints pregame. It's not just coming out here playing catch, doing a couple leg kicks and going. We're really, really, and again, we tell our guys, you just said it. They might not run a hard sprint the entire game. That's okay. But we don't want them to have to run a sprint in the 7th inning. And the last time they ran a hard sprint was at 3:30 in the afternoon.
Yeah, exactly.
At least if they can run that hard sprint, they run 5 of them at 7 o'clock right after the anthem. We know if they have to run it in the 7th inning, at least they did it an hour and a half ago, 2 hours ago. So like those are the big things that we do is making sure that they do it pregame. And then it's like, dude, we don't ask a lot, 3 hard sprints. And then again, that we tell them as long as we do that, we don't have to come out and be like, hey, let's stand on the line. All right, here we go. 30s, let's go. They're pros. Yeah, we expect them to do it on their own. And then again, as part of their warm up as well, we don't just do it. We do a dynamic, but we'll add skip progressions into their warm ups, run rocket stuff into their warm ups to where they are hitting some technical aspect throughout the course of the season as well.
How much going forward and then going backwards? So like for sprinting forward, how much are they sprinting backwards or doing anything backwards?
Um, yeah, to be honest, I'm not opposed to sprinting backwards, and I understand and I like the logic behind it. I kind of dove into it a few years ago, and we did it more with our pitchers. But now we kind of just stick straight ahead. A lot of the backward stuff we do is agility work. It'll be like hard 4 steps forward, hard four back pedals, and sprinting out of it, like more multi-directional stuff. But we haven't like elongated back pedals or anything like that. We did do it a few years ago, and it helped.
Because
I
I
wouldn't
always
say
think about the plyo throws now. Obviously, people are doing a lot of reverse throws, and so I didn't know if it was the same thing with our legs because most injuries are hamstrings. It's decelerators. If there was
yeah.
some theory and some practice in there of trying to train the decelerators going backwards to help alleviate maybe some hamstring tweaks.
Yeah, and again, the science behind it, and I understand the logic behind it. I can't say, we do it a lot, but we do it in small doses as far as it's part of our warm up, not necessarily part of our process of like every Wednesday we're going to do back pedal runs. We touch on it, a few times a month, but it's not like a staple in what we do. But it's the logic behind it's there and good, and it's probably something we should touch a little bit more on, to be honest.
I mean, realistically, somebody shuts it down for a week or two. How long should it really take them to get back into the swing of things? I know it's
In the
probably the
weight
longer
room,
they're
it's
away
just
from it. Yeah, from lifting, basically lifting and sprinting.
lifting, sprinting. For me, rule of thumb is a week's completely fine. You can kind of jump right back into it. 2 weeks, it's kind of you can almost jump back right to where you're at, but maybe go back like a week before. So like, let's just say, let's simple model a 3 week plan. I was going to do 5x5s my first week. I was going to do 5x4s my next week, 5x3s my last week. Let's just say I took 2 weeks off and I just finished 5x3s. When I start back up again, I would probably start at my 5x4s. And then if I took 3 weeks off, I would start back at my 5x5s. Then if I took like a month off, I would probably not want to start with strength right away. I'd probably want to do more GPP stuff first. And again, a lot of that's very dependent on your training age. Guys who train a lot and sprint a lot, they can take more time off and not have bad impacts. If um, your training age isn't as old and you're newer to training, the more time you take off, the more you need to build back up.
I mean,
So,
what are some good GPP things just getting back into it, or somebody that maybe wants to test their general fitness to see if I'm to that point where I can maybe start sprinting?
to start like sprinting, as in
Yeah,
like
like a build up to it. Say I've been off for a while. Where's a good place to kind of start to get built back into it?
for me, I think a good GPP is, I would say, a week of, at least a week of GPP, and then start integrating light plyos in probably that second or third week. And then as long as you're comfortable with like light plyometrics, some box jumps, broad jumps, things like that, you should be able to run. And when I mean run, I mean getting up to 80% max speed. Not being like, oh, okay, I've worked out for 2 weeks. Now I can go and do the combine and run a 40. And then from there, once you build your running up, start, 70% and then end at 80%. And then again, that next week, start slowly jumping up and progressing again. Like we've been working guys out since the end of October here, and we're barely getting our guys up to the Curve Woodway today. So you're talking a month and a half of, hey, let's go, let's grind. So, and these are elite level athletes who are in moderate, pretty good shape.
Do you feel like the human brain and body's evolved over time?
Yes.
I do too.
I
Slow. It's hard to see any of those genetic variations, but I do feel like we have them.
So yeah, so do I. Again, you think of, you go back, how whatever you believe in evolution and stuff like that. But I mean, we do the same things, we just do them so much better. It's that you can say the same thing in baseball. I mean, there's nothing against what's happened in the past, but the stuff that these guys do out here daily, and you look at numbers and you talk numbers, like Babe Ruth was tremendous. He's not Shohei Ohtani, who's throwing 100 miles per hour and hitting balls 500 feet. Like, he's not. Like what these guys do is absolutely incredible. And like sometimes, and that's the thing that we have to sell to front offices. Everybody always asks us, why are injuries up? We feed these guys better. We have more people in place for them. We have more coaches now than ever. You get what I mean? They make more now than ever. Why do they still get hurt? Because they're better. If you're gonna throw 100, like think of the torque and the forces that puts on the body. Look at Aaron Judge and Stan, how big those guys are. Like the body's not supposed to move like that fast in those motions with those angles. So it's like the happy medium of the trade-off is we want to see these monsters playing this game to where unfortunately things are going to happen. We don't want them to, and it's our job. And again, for me, it's like mitigate the risk, one, two, and second, enhance the recovery time by their training. So we want to train these guys, get them as physically prepared and strong as possible. So if they tweak a hammy, it's 2 to 4 weeks, not 6 to 8 weeks. You get what I mean? Like that's the way I look at things. Stuff's gonna happen. What can we do to, if something does happen, have that return to play be shorter? How can we develop these guys and strengthen these guys to reduce IL days, stuff like that.
And a lot of that's still a recovery thing post activity, correct?
Absolutely. Again, post activity nowadays, one, it's nutrition. We focus on what these guys get in their bodies after the game, how they hydrate after the games. Um, Again, you want to have a pop, but you need to have at least 3 or 4 glasses of water before you go too. Right? And then you got to have at least another 3 or 4 bottles on your way into the stadium. Here again, we're fortunate. We have the Taj Mahal of baseball facilities right now. The owners, Ray and Neil, they did a tremendous job. We have a cryo chamber here on site, red light therapy bed here on site. We have a Normatec room here. We have specialists come in. We have two massage therapists on staff. We have four athletic trainers. So the recovery aspect for us is huge. But again, it goes beyond modalities and therapy. A lot of this, we tell these guys, you nailed it. Your sleep is vital. And so we have to hammer that to these guys, and that's their responsibility. And again, our players, for the most part, these guys, they're sitting on lottery tickets, so they take it serious nowadays. Look at the money that's getting thrown out. These guys want part of it, so they take it. They do take it serious. I mean, our big name guys, they grab waters walking out of the stadiums. They come and do post game stretches after the game. They get here early to do red light bed.
How
It's
often are they using the UV sauna and then the cryo chamber?
varies upon guy. I will say the red light's kind of the thing now. Guys
I
use
really
that more.
like it.
I
If
love it.
anybody hasn't used one, I would jump in there. I've done it twice, and I
Yeah,
love it.
we only have one, and so obviously, like anything, when you have 25 guys, our younger guys get here really early. It's funny. You look and you're like, it's noon. It's like, dude, what are you doing here? It's like, and then you see them walk to the recovery room, and it's like, yeah, I would get in there before our big boys get here too.
Yeah,
Because again, everybody uses it. But I would say on average during the season, guys who do use it, which isn't 100% of our guys, but I would say it's more than 50% of our guys use it at least 3 times a week when we're at
that's awesome.
home. And then they'll do cryo about once. Cryo, or we have hot tub, cold tubs too.
Okay.
So again, cryo was a big thing, but now hot tub, cold tub, everybody kind of just goes back to they're like, man, I don't want to have to go set it up, have somebody do it for me. I'll just sit in the cold tub for 9 minutes and I'll be good. It's like, okay.
Because
So
that's part of it too, from an implementation standpoint. If you can make it easier, the players are going to gravitate to what maybe takes a little bit less time than the other piece.
no doubt, no doubt. So, and then again, our cryo chambers across the hall. So it's not like it's a hassle, but we have to have someone with them ask to where sometimes, again, the guys just want to have ball talk and they'll just go sit in the cold tub at the end of the game and talk about whatever's happening and do that. But again, the understanding of what these guys know now, it's so different than when I first started. Because even when I first started, guys were going to spring training to get in shape. If you go to spring training to get in shape now, you don't have a job.
No.
So you might as well just not even show up. And then again, even colleges. I mean, I went to a little Division II, love CSU Pueblo with all my heart. We didn't have anything at CSU Pueblo then that I did now. Like now it's completely different. I mean, they have a multi-million-dollar weight room. They have two strength coaches. We didn't have any of that. One of our grad assistants, Brian Osanovich, who was an ex-player, took us through our stuff. Um, so kids are coming in with a lot higher training level. I mean, I was fortunate when I was with the Rockies. I worked in Denver at a private sector. I mean, high school kids are now paying for training. So if you're not doing it, you're kind of putting yourself behind the eight ball.
Talk about kind of what you're doing with the Professional Baseball Strength and Conditioning Coaches Association, and then kind of how that's marrying a little bit with what the NSCA is doing.
So the PBSCCS was started a long time ago. Pretty much the PBATs, the athletic trainers, had their kind of own association to where they would get together. And again, the best way to learn is from each other. So about 20 years ago, strength and conditioning coaches didn't have a seat at the table. They started going to winter meetings. About five guys started it. Then it started to grow to major league guys. Then you had your major league guys and your coordinators going. Now we have major league guys all the way down to minor league strength coaches who are part of our foundation, to where we have a website, the pbsccs.com website, to where, again, there's educational stuff on there for videos, for athletes of how pros train pros. Also on there is a job board for people who are interested of wanting to get into the, professional strength and conditioning, things like that. And we're trying to couple that now with ABCA and with even the collegiate level. We don't know everything. However, we do have a lot of experience to where, like I told you, we're trying to filter some things for the betterment of our youth and for the betterment of the game and for the betterment of parents. There's a lot of great parents out who want to help their kids, who are doing research online. and some of the stuff they see online can be detrimental. So one of our big goals at winter meetings this year, the PBS CCS, was we need to do a better job as professional baseball strength and conditioning coaches to set the tone, to do little things. It doesn't have to be in-depth training protocols as far as sets and reps, timing, VBT, force play, how to properly do shoulder programs. Again, at what age should kids start to load weight, like lift weight? What middle school wise, adolescence, training age stuff. So we want to kind of get out ahead of the curve and help parents, help high school coaches um, learn just general adaptation for their kids. So we're our goal is to couple with that, as well as to continue learning from, again, the Eric Cressies of the world, some of the collegiate coaches of the world, and just share knowledge. Because again, it's turning into the wild, wild west, to where we need to hone it in to where there's some credibility behind some of this stuff people are trying with their kids to, number one, protect kids. I mean, baseball is a terrific game and a great game, and it's horrible when you see a 13-year-old who has a UCL tear, and we want to kind of lead the way to start preventing some of those things.
Yep. Heck yeah. And that's been our biggest thing too with us, is trying to help the people that are initially trying to do this for the first time and be a safe space for them to get information. Yeah. And I think all the cool thing is I think all of our organizations now are kind of moving in that direction to try to help as best we can.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I don't want to knock, and I'm not trying to talk bad about gurus and stuff, but everybody has to make a dollar. Okay. And sometimes, again, we go down those rabbit holes, and there's a lot of good knowledge behind what some of these guys are saying. However, how they make money is, how can I be different? And sometimes that different is dangerous. Yep. And so, again, it's okay to be different and to, again, add things in, but how can we properly do it with little Johnny, who's in Iowa in the hayfields, whose dad's looking on the internet? You get what I mean?
Yes.
He probably shouldn't be doing that the same as the 16-year-old kid who's in a big city who's been training for 3 years, 4 years. So again, we want to, like you said, create a safe space where this is what elite athletes do. And to be honest with you, people are going to be surprised at how vanilla we are. The meat and potatoes is the meat and potatoes. Yeah. Our job, I'll just say it with the organizations, two of my best friends still are with the Rockies and one's with the Angels. My job isn't to do anything different than them, because we do the same lifts. My job is to coach it better than them. Are we just going to allow our guys to squat and not watch them and put up a protocol, or no? Are we going to teach them where to fill the lift, how to do it? So again, we all do the same thing in pro ball. How are we cueing it? That's how we get our edge. It's not the lifting protocol. Those are just pieces of paper. It's how are we implementing it? How are we programming it? And how are we coaching it? But we all do similar to the same stuff.
Do you have a fail forward moment? Do you have something you thought was going to sidetrack you, but looking back now is one of the best things that happened to you?
Yeah, I will say getting fired from Anaheim. I mean, in professional sports and in collegiate sports, any sports, I mean, they tell you if you're a coach and you haven't been fired yet, just wait, because you will be. And again, I thought everything there was going very well. We had a lot of success from the medical side of stuff while we were there. Unfortunately, we had a regime change. Jerry DePoto,
which happens a lot in pro ball.
Yeah. They left to Seattle. Billy Epler actually at the time left the Yankees and went in. And we spent a year with him and his new regime. And again, good for them. I don't hold it against them. You want your people. Like, when you get a job, if you want your people, everybody has that right. And that was kind of my fail forward moment, because again, in pro sports and coaching in general, you don't have to do anything wrong to get let go. And it's all how you handle it. It's all, again, you get better, you get better.
I never ask why now when somebody's like, well, my contract didn't get renewed. Like, I never, because it's just part of what it is.
Unfortunately it is. Again, you see a lot of good guys yearly and you're like, wow, I never saw it coming. And I decided not to get bitter, to get better. I actually debated leaving pro ball at that time. I'd been in it 10 years, and it's hard. I mean, it's a 1%er job for sure. Again, you're one of total, maybe 300 strength coaches in the world in pro ball. But it's again, I've watched my nephew play soccer 10 times, and he's going to be a senior in high school. My kids, my family, I've been to three of his birthdays. He's 16. So I thought about getting out of it. And fortunately for me, I stayed in. I've made good relationships along the way while I was coaching. And I knew Nappy very well, Pichardo, and I knew Hosey very well over here. And they took a risk on me. I went back to A-ball, went from being a coordinator and leading a department to going to Kinston, North Carolina, out next to where you are, and spent a year out there. And again, it's worked out. So
What did you tighten up from maybe what you weren't doing? What would you clean up then to help you with the next one?
for me, I didn't. Again, I learn and I critique myself all the time. So I'm always tightening things up, whether it be from communication aspect of things to handling players, communicating with staff. The biggest thing for me was when I was in Colorado, and even my first 2 years in with the Angels, I'd always just been a coach, a minor league coach, a strength and conditioning coach. So the only guy I had to answer to was my coordinator. He was my boss. And then again, he has a whole other line of people. So my last 3 years in Anaheim, I learned I was a coordinator. And so that was an awesome experience of then you get to see the business side of the game. Like a lot of the questions that I had as a coach of why aren't we doing this? Why is this going on? Why is this guy getting called up? What's going on here? Like, why don't we have more money for this? I learned as a coordinator, it's not because we're not asking, it's just because sometimes they're just not going to give it, or there's always a reason behind the moves that are made. So I guess when I came to Texas, I combined both of those two, and I said, dude, just worry about being a coach. And I was happy. I was like, dude, I'm so glad I'm not a coordinator right now. Have fun going and sitting in the meetings. I was leaving spring training at like 3 o'clock while they're going in to talk about 300 players. I'm like, see you, dude. Have fun. Don't miss that. So it allowed me the ability just to learn what's important, know where you're at in your pecking order, and just focus on that and be as good as you can possibly be at it. Because again, we all have our piece in the puzzle, right? And it's just the same thing with me with our head guy now, Jose. I'm not the head guy. My job's not to be the head guy. My job's not to have the conversations with the front office. Depending on the player, sometimes it's not even my place to have the conversation with that player. What my job is to be is the boots on the ground when he's taking care of that stuff. When he's at a meeting, if he can't be here, my job's to be here. So again, the whole culmination of my career after I got let go, it helped me focus on just be where you're at. Know what your job is, know what your description is, and be the best at it. And as long as you do that, opportunity will present itself.
When are you getting your routines and your workouts in? And is it morning? Is it evening? How are you staying on top of your stuff?
I'm a morning guy. I've always been a morning guy. I've never been a night owl. So spring training, yeah, they're long days, but it wakes me up. I make a cup of coffee, I drive into the stadium, and I do my workout in before guys get here. I give myself about 30 minutes in between, 40 minutes so I could shower, get on my computer, anything I need to do, and then have guys go. But I'm a big,
Are you pretty
and I have a
similar what you're doing in the mornings? Do you switch it up or is it?
I always try to take myself through their lifts, and I'll always be 3 weeks ahead of them. I always try to be 3 weeks ahead just in case I see something or I'm like, oh, this doesn't, okay, I don't like this. I can change it.
Love it.
So that's kind of where I'm at.
I love that. What podcasts and books do you dive into?
I'm into everything podcast wise. Heck, I like a lot of Cressy stuff. I like a lot of Mike Reinold stuff. We have a really, really good one, a PBS CCS one. Chris Messina is tremendous. He's been doing it now for like 4 years. He gets a lot of professional.
What's the name of the professional strength coaches one?
I believe it's just the PBS CCS podcast.
Cool.
And it has tales of everything. He has everybody from rookie ball guys to Dominican strength coaches to major league strength coaches. And then he even breaks down, like I've done one where we go over FRC. So if people don't know what FRC is, you can learn what that is. It goes on. I've also been on one my first year in the major leagues. There was 4 of us on, so you could kind of hear from the strength and conditioning side what we felt was important, what we went through. He does an awesome job with that. So I like listening to that one because I like listening to my counterparts and again, young minor league guys and stuff like that too. You can learn from everybody.
How different is it going to the big league side?
significantly different. It's the major leagues is not real life. It's fantasy land. It really is. You do your job and your job only. I mean, we're spoiled as can be. You're on a charter plane. You're staying in five-star hotels. The stadiums are terrific. The food's terrific. It's not real life. That's why you always have to humble yourself and you always have to remember what it was. But the other thing with that comes significant amount of responsibility. I don't like the word pressure, but everything's magnified in the major leagues. I don't mean to sound rude, but if Tommy gets hurt in A ball, it's okay.
It's not
If
in the paper
if one of our big guys
or
gets
on
hurt and misses,
ESPN.
yes, significant misses significant, it's a big deal. And again,
Yeah,
wins and
First Take's
losses
not
up
talking
here.
about it if it's a rookie ball player.
No, and it's all about winning up here. So if you're not winning, it's a lot different. It's not about developing. You could be losing games in the minor leagues, but everybody's getting better and it's okay. Losing is not okay up here. So again, with those perks of the job also comes the perks of responsibility. Everybody's more responsible to be on top of their game every day and do what you're supposed to do every day. So,
What are some final thoughts or something I should have asked you that I didn't?
um, you covered it all. This was awesome. I've only done a few of these, five or six, and this was outstanding. Again, I can't thank you enough. I think we touched on everything we spoke about, wanted to, and again, moving forward, myself, anybody in pro ball, reach out to us. We want to help. We're here to help. Like we love helping these guys. At the end of the day, if you're a strength coach, you don't do it for the money. We do it because we're teachers and might not be able to teach you math and science and geology, but we love teaching people about the human body.
Where's the best place to reach you if they want to reach
Uh,
out?
I mean, Twitter, Instagram, those are kind of my two. I don't really. That
LinkedIn.
LinkedIn, yes, LinkedIn's all that. My Facebook and Instagram's more personal. I don't post a lot of professional stuff, but if people reach out to me, I always try to make sure I do get back to them. Twitter and LinkedIn professionally is the best for me to connect with people. Again, I like to connect with people, and if there's people in your area that you can also connect with, again, I can help you that way as well.
Like I said, we have the right people all over the different pockets of the baseball industry now that are willing to help. Like the game's in a great place. It's going to be in a great place 5 years from now because of the people that we have running things now. It's going to be in a better place 10 years. So I'm excited for the baseball industry right now because we do have the right people in all pockets of it that are trying to push this thing forward in a good way.
I couldn't agree more. And again, I'm always let's be part of the solutions and not the problems. So, and again, I know speaking for myself, and I was just there out in San Diego 3 weeks ago, and our whole organization is all in on that as well.
Yep. I appreciate it, Al. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I greatly appreciate you having me.